This approach is described by its name that the leaders have certain well-defined common and shared goals. And to achieve these goals, the leaders have to choose a path, a roadmap, an action roadmap to achieve these goals and objectives of the organization and team. And these goals and objectives are definitely achieved through the support and work from the followers or team members. So definitely the leaders would always try to facilitate the followers to achieve these goals. So if you look at this approach, or the name of this approach, it very clearly describes that the focus of this theory is on achieving the goals and specifying the path to achieve these goals. So clear goals and a clear roadmap would make a success story for the leaders. Previously, we discussed the traits theory, and then that was followed by skill theories. We also discussed the behavior approach, and then we came to the situational approach, very interesting. Some very interesting school of thoughts we could see that within the different kinds of situations, the leaders would select the different kind and different styles of leadership. Hence, the leadership is not a static phenomena, rather this is a dynamic phenomenon. It will depend on the nature of followers and the nature of tasks or goals. New path goal approach. There is a case study which you will then read at the end of, once we are doing this, we have done this, that there are three supervisors, Art, Bob, and Carol, and they have to work in three shifts. And under three shifts, there are different sets of tasks and different sets of challenges. And again, the attributes of the followers are also very different. So for each shift and for each team, there is different kinds of challenges. And the three supervisors are trying to achieve these challenges and these tasks within the constraints of their followers and certainly the situation. Now, the path goal theory is designed to explain how leaders can help followers along the path of their goals by selecting specific behaviors that are best suited for followers' needs and to the situation in which the followers are working. That the goals are made clear to the followers, first of all, and then once the goals are made clear, then the leaders would work most of the time for facilitation of the followers to identify that what can be the best way of achieving these goals and tasks. By choosing the appropriate style, leaders increase followers' expectations for success and satisfaction. So he or she's all the time working with the followers to improve their expectations so that they can create the synergy of team and they can then achieve the common goals. The work of Evans, House, and Dessler and House and Mitchell are some of the prominent works. And if you could see, these were kind in the early 70s and then towards the mid of 70s. For the leader, it's imperative to use a leadership style that best meets follower motivational needs. So this is mainly focusing on the motivational needs of the followers, that whatever style the followers are supposed to adopt, it by all means must create motivation at the end of the day. And motivation, certainly, we know is the creating of well enthusiasm within the organization and followers so that they can willingly contribute to the goals and objectives. Leaders try to enhance followers' goal attainment by providing information and reward in the work environment. So, in which, while explaining further this theory, that the leaders would bring a reward system and ample informations to create the motivation in the. You can see a small diagram in the top of this presentation that we have the followers, there's a path, and this path is leading towards school or productivity. And this path is then obstructed, they are impeded by some obstacles, and these obstacles are something which detract the followers to achieve the goals or detract them from the path to achieve the goals. Now, the leadership would definitely come into play to minimize or remove these obstacles. And for this purpose, the first and the most important thing is that the leader would definitely define their very clear goals and objectives. And these goals must be very well defined, and at the same time must be very clearly indicated and explained to the followers. So motivation is conceptualized from the perspective of the expectancy theory. I understand that most of you who are already the graduates of management sciences would know about the famous V-room expectancy theory. And this expectancy theory states that the achievement of goals is not only possible through monetary benefits, but also you want to create motivation through other means so that you can. So this is normally V-room two-factor theory or expectancy theory that motivators and satisfies. A leader needs to find out what is rewarding to followers about their work and then make those rewards available to them when they accomplish the requirements of their goal. This is very important. That first of all, you have to identify that what kind of rewards can motivate the team members and the followers, and these rewards must be very clearly given to them before the start of their job. And once they achieve this job, they must be given these rewards. So these rewards would definitely create more motivation and competition for good work. Now, expectancy theory of the V room is about the goals that followers choose and how leaders help them to reward them for meeting these goals. So certainly, whatever style of leadership we adopt, it will have a different impact or effect on the motivational level of the followers. Now, the first component of this leadership path goal theory approach is the leadership behavior. Now, the behavior can be of different type. For example, we discussed this last time in the situational leadership also, that it might be directive, supportive, participative, and achievement oriented. Now, the directive kind of leadership is most of the time uh, unidirectional, top down communication, and the instruction and orders are given to the followers from top, and they are very clearly given the expectation. and how it is done in the timeline, and everything is given to them. And in this directive leader, clear standards and performance make the rules and regulations clear to followers. So the rules, regulation, line of communication, line of command, and the expected outcomes are very clear to everybody. The second is supportive leaders, our leadership style, who are more like friends, and they provide the different kinds of support to make the followers, the team members, motivated and to care for their needs as human beings and make them work. The third is participative approach of leadership, in which the leaders would like to allow the participation of the followers in decision making. This is most of the time adopted in the high level management, in which you have the senior management, and the senior management have got very good experience to work with the organization, and they can then give you very ample and substantial recommendations and advices on the problems. Finally, we have the achievement oriented leadership style or behavior, which is characterized by leaders who challenge followers to perform work at the highest level possible. This leader establishes high standard of excellence for followers and seek continuous improvements. So normally the high performance teams, the teams which are highly dynamic, dealing with the complex assignments and tasks, are highly achievement oriented teams, and the leadership is highly achievement oriented. Now, the second important part of the leadership is the followers and their characteristics. We discussed that the followers definitely have a very high role in the achieving of the goals and objectives of the organizations. The first need of all the followers in general is need for affiliation, because the followers would always prefer to have the supportive leadership, because the friendly nature of this kind of leadership would be attracted by the followers, and they will have more affiliations with the leaders. Contrary to that, the dogmatic and authoritarian leadership may work under certain situation, but under this uh, theory, it provides a psychological structure and task clarity. Directive leadership helps these followers by clarifying the path of the goal, making it less ambiguous. So, in some time that if the followers are not clear about the structure and task, the rules, regulations, policy, then definitely that a directive leadership would work to make them very clear understanding of the problems and of the structures. The second characteristic is the desire for control. Followers with an internal locus of control believe that they are in charge of the events that occur in their life, where those with an external locus of control believe that chance, fate, outside forces determine life events. And it's very interesting attribute of the leaders, because in our society, many times people believe that we don't have control. Everything's come from destiny and fate, and sometimes even we really work very hard, but we can't get any results. So this is, I think, not not correct and an appropriate outlook to the control. The perspective of a control or a destiny, even in Islam, has not been like that, and unfortunately, the ignorant people have made it something like that, that as if the fate is a dumb luck and you can't do anything. In Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala uh, says that laysa lil insana illa ma saha, that for men there is nothing except a struggle. So definitely the struggle is the fundamental control of the event, and definitely the human being would like to work. So, but still, there is a big number of people who believe that everything is not controlled by us, and if even if we work very hard, now the leaders would try to control internal locus of control, create internal locus of control, so that the people can believe that with their hard work they can bring the change. For followers with an internal locus of control, participative leadership is most satisfying because since they believe that they themselves are the ingredients for the change, the inputs for the change, therefore their participation in the decision making would be more important. So if the leadership is also participative, then this kind of people would definitely deliver more and they would bring more results. But if the people have the external locus of control and they believe that their efforts cannot bring some very good, so in this particular case, then definitely the leaders would be more like something being like authoritarian or directive, in which they would like to force their orders. Followers' perceptions of their own abilities. This is also very important, that unless the followers don't believe in their own strengths and in their own capabilities, then the leaders cannot bring the change. Iqbal said it, "Zoki yaqeen or khudi," your belief in yourself, that how you can bring change in the society through your own hard work and efforts. So this is very important, and the uh, follower perception to believe in their abilities uh, will definitely bring the competence up, and the need for the directive leadership would go down. More the the trust and the belief in your own self, in the followers, would definitely bring their competence, and then the directive authoritative leadership would not work, and you will go more for participative and supportive. The third important characteristic of this theory is the task characteristics. Now the task is definitely very important. Every task may not be the same. The task may not be simple all the time. The task may not be very complex all the time. The task may not be very easy to understand. Many times the task may not be very uphill and difficult. So the complexity and the nature of task would definitely change from one scenario to the other scenario. So the task characteristic include the design of the follower task, the formal authority system, and the primary work group of the followers. Three important characteristics that the followers task will have two very important characters: the authority system, in which they are empowered to take the decision, and then the group of people which are combined to solve that task. Now, task characteristics may call for leadership involvement. Tasks that are unclear and ambiguous call for leadership input. Now, just I have already shared with you that every task may not be very simple, but at the same time, many tasks may be very complex. In that particular condition, then definitely the inputs from the leaders would come, and they would give the clear understanding of the task to the followers. And this is really very important for the complex tasks. In addition, highly repetitive tasks can call for leadership that gives support. So, in the repetitive nature of the task, there may not be much input from the leaders in terms of understanding it, but definitely they would give their supportive leadership to solve the problems. In work setting where formal authority system is weak, leadership becomes a tool that helps followers by making the rules and work requirements. If the formal authority system, which means that the power structure of the organizations, the communication, the line of command and authority is not very clear, then definitely in such cases, uh, the uh, leadership becomes a tool to help followers making rules and regulations and operating procedures. In contrast with the group norms are weak and non-supportive, leadership assists in building cohesiveness and role responsibility. This also uh, many times the groups which are combined together to deliver don't have the cohesion, they are not having the common values to understand the common goals. Therefore, the leaders would try to assess them in bringing that team integrity and team cohesiveness and team integration rather. In 96, House, who was the original proponent of this theory, revisited this theory and he extended his original work. And based on the changes in about 2 decades, House added some more attributes to and behaviors. To, for example, the leaders may be directive, supportive, participative, achievement oriented, work facilitators, group oriented decision process makers, work group representation, networking, and value based leadership behavior. So he added three or four more, three more leadership behaviors. The essence of the new behavior is the same as the original. To be effective, leader need to help followers by giving them what is missing in their involvement environment and by helping them compensate for deficiencies in their ability. So this was almost the same thing, but he had a new version of the old things to have more emphasis on the group facilitation and support from the. Now, coming to the that how does it work? We discussed that there are leadership behaviors which may be directive, supportive, participative, and achievement oriented, and then there will be follower characteristics. They may be dogmatic, which would need authoritarian style. They may not be satisfied. They may need affiliation. They may need human touch. They may be autonomous, need for control, need for clarity. They may have high expectations and they may need to excel. The task characteristics may be ambiguous, unclear rules, complex, maybe repetitive, unchallenging, mundane, very common, maybe ambiguous, unclear. So, for different kinds of leadership behavior, you can think of the follower attributes and characteristics and then the task characteristics. The ambiguous, challenging, and complex. So, there can be different set of characteristics for the task and the followers and the leadership behaviors. Now, coming to the fact that how does this path goal approach works? Uh, we discussed that under different circumstances of the task nature and the follower attributes, the leader may decide about the leadership style. The theory predicts that a directive style for leadership is best in situations in which the followers are dogmatic and authoritarian, the task demands are ambiguous, and the organizational rules are unclear. So, definitely for different kinds of followers, characteristics, and tasks, we discuss the needs for the leadership. For example, in authoritarian leadership style, you will have for tasks that structured, unsatisfying, and frustrating. Path goal theory suggests the leader should be supportive style. The supportive style provides what is missing by nurturing followers when they are engaged in tasks they are repetitive and unchallenging. Supportive leadership offers a sense of human touch for followers engaged in mundane mechanized activity. Participative leadership is considered best when task is ambiguous. Participation gives greater clarity to how certain paths lead to certain goals. So, for achievement-oriented leadership is more effective in setting in which followers are required to perform ambiguous tasks. In settings such as these, leaders who challenge and set high standards for followers raise followers' confidence and they have the ability to reach their goals. In effect, achievement-oriented leaders help followers feel that their efforts will result in effective performance. In setting where the task is more structured and less ambiguous, however, the achievement-oriented leadership appears to be unrelated to followers' expectations about their work efforts. So, Under the four task characteristics, the leadership styles have been given in this theory, and the effectiveness of these styles would definitely depend on the nature of and characteristics of the followers also. Now, the biggest strength of this theory is that it has given us a clear theoretical framework that how the various leadership behavior and style affect the follower satisfaction and work performance. It was one of the first theories to specify four conceptual distinct varieties of leaders with respect to followers and goals. Secondly, it attempts to integrate the motivation principle expectancy theory. We discussed the V room two-factor theory, the motivators and satisfiers was combined here, and motivation was made one of the most important ingredient uh, in the performance of followers. And thirdly, it provides a model that is in certain ways is very practical. In the simplest form, the theory reminds leaders that the overarching purpose of the leadership is to guide and coach the followers as they move along the path to achieve a goal. So this is very important for the leaders, that once they understand that maybe in the beginning when the followers are not clear about the goals, and the goal is a very uh, complex in nature, then definitely the leadership style will be more directive, and the tasks are very clearly identified to the followers. All the rules regulations are framed, and the expectations are clearly dictated to them. And as they move forward on the path of achievement, the participative nature would come, and the leader would be getting the participation and advices and recommendations from the leaders, from the followers, and then definitely once they are doing their job in a greater way, then the leaders would be doing more supportive style. So depending on it can be even adopted to the same followers in different phases, or it may be uh, uh, adopted to the different followers in different circumstances. Now, just like other theories, we can think of a set of criticism and objections on this theory. For example, uh, its complexity, that it has given uh, four type of different styles, and then under each style there are different uh, task characteristics and then the follower characteristics. So definitely it's making the story of leadership more complex. The second is that it has received only partial support from many empirical research. So the empirical research which has been conducted in the last 50 years almost, the after the advent of this theory, we have very little empirical evidence available to validate this theory. Thirdly, it fails to explain adequately the relationship between leadership behavior and follower motivation. Though they have admitted that the motivation is important, but unfortunately, there's no proper relationship given. A path goal theory is unique is that incorporates the tenets of expectancy theory. However, it does not go for enough for explaining or explicating how leadership is related to these tenets. Another was the path goal theory approaches or suggests that it is important for leaders to provide coaching, guidance, direction for followers to help followers define and clarify their goals, and to help followers around the obstacle they attempt. In effect, this approach treats leadership as one-way event. The leader affects the follower. So uh, in most of the time, if we go for the supportive leadership, the leader is to provide all the. So it is more like one-way traffic, and the most of the things are coming from the leaders, and the followers are not involved in this process. And finally, it gives places a great deal of responsibility on leaders and much less on followers, because in all these cases we could see that the leaders were having their roles very dominantly, but the followers were not having very dominant roles, and in many cases it may be very counterproductive when the leaders are becoming more involved in everything, and the communication is only top down, and it is only going from the leader to followers. Then it may not be able to exploit the abilities of the followers. Now, it can be applied for the many good things, like uh, it could be applied to different situations to see that how the different characteristics of the followers and leadership style can be adopted. The principle of path goal theory can be used by leaders at levels all levels in the organization and for all types of task trip. I have already given this example that, for example, if you are dealing with the tasks which are of routine matter, then definitely in that case you will be more supportive to give them the different supports and make them uh, doing their jobs in time. But if the tasks are highly complex, then maybe you are more directive sometime. So a leader must carefully assess the follower in their task and then choose the appropriate leadership style. For example, in a university setting where the junior faculty members feel apprehensive about his or her teaching, and research, a department chair should give supportive leadership. By giving care and support, the chair helps the junior faculty members gain a sense of confidence about his or her ability to perform the work. So I already explained that in early career, the role of the senior management is to provide support to the junior staff so that they can definitely become more involved in developing themselves. So this is a case study. You may go through this later on. Just to summarize, the path goal theory was developed to explain how leaders motivate followers to be productive and satisfied with their work. It was a contingency approach to leadership because effectiveness depends on the fit between the leader's behavior and the characteristics of the followers in the task. Three things. The basic principle of path goal theory was derived from expectancy theory of Verum, which suggests that the follower will be motivated if they feel competent, if they think their efforts will be rewarded, if they find the pace of their work valuable. A leader can help followers by selecting type of leadership from directive, supportive, participative, and achievement oriented. It provides what is missing for followers in a particular work setting. In simple terms, it is the leader's responsibility to help followers achieve their goals by directing, guiding, coaching them along the way. Path goal theory offers a large set of predictions for how leader style interacts with the followers' needs and the nature of the task. Among other things, it predicts that directive leadership is effective in the ambiguous task, that supportive leadership is more effective in repetitive tasks, and the participative leadership is effective when tasks are unclear and followers are autonomous, and the achievement-oriented leadership is effective for challenging tasks. Path goal theory has three major strengths: that it provides a theoretical framework that is useful for understanding how directive, supportive, participative, and achievement-oriented style of leadership would affect in different types of the task and characteristics of the followers. And secondly, the path goal theory is unique that it integrates the motivation principle of expectancy theory of Leroy into the theory of leadership. Third is it provides a practical model that underscores the important ways in which leaders help followers. On the negative side, we could have four criticisms. The first thing is that the empirical evidence could not give us enough support. Uh, Second, research findings today do not support it. Thirdly, it does not show clear way how leadership behavior directly affect the follower motivation. And lastly, path goal theory is very leader oriented, and it makes the leader more responsible than the followers. And by the end of the day, it may create demotivation, and the uh, role of the followers may be undermined. This is a questionnaire, goal leadership. It's 20 questions, and you can uh, see that how in which particular kind of leadership style you are. Then depending on your score, For example, the scores and different score and interpretation. You can visit and decide style you have. These are some of. Thank you very much. Videos which you can download from the YouTube to see that the role of. I would like to just then ping. So at the last slides, I've given some articles to study for the students and for the readers. These are some of the Sage publication articles. You can visit and see that how the different articles have given the relationship between the leader